there's another system which only talks about 3 kayas. I don't know what scripture you're referring to here, because it may be different terminology is used in those scriptures. But in general, the explanation you find is that of 3 bodies, from the point of view of 3 kayas, or 3 bodies, you have the Dharmakaya, you have the Sambhogakaya, and you have the Nimanakaya. Or in other words, you have the wisdom body, you have the enjoyment body, and you have the emanation body. And then the wisdom body, or the Dharmakaya, can be again subdivided into the nature body, or the Svabhavakaya, and into the wisdom body.
아니 야나 따딜레시시 제베이나 다 갈라고래 디바탐지 세비 떡기 이니 투디다 최탐지 직접도 켄지 에디 켄 온두잖아 덴지기 이니 투디라 아니 이시슈구 자주라 다 덴지기 투디 띵도 아니 디바세비 차요라 고된당 아니 투기다 춘이디 뭐니 구제 아니 딘디기 투 디니 둘째라 파게 아니 수구르샤르 온두잖아 아니 장선 파보 코나라야 낭데기 용구이 남바지다 수수기와 레다 인치라 낭데기 다 수수기와 단체와 낭데기 다 줄구치니 다 리니 파게 디다 미 남바진 라이 남바진 다 되는 용데에 디레.
So, or again to go into more extensive explanation, so upon removing all the obscurations, removing all the obstructions, so the kind of all the obstructions, the cognitive and affective obstructions, when they are removed, the kind of mental consciousness that realizes all phenomena, that is called the wisdom dharma body. So this is the mind of Buddha, the omniscient mind of the Buddha. And then from the point of view of this cessation, so the factor of cessation, the aspect of the eliminations, so the cessations in the continuum of the Buddha, as well as the emptiness of the mental continuum of the Buddha, so the cessations that are found in the mental continuum of the Buddha, as well as the emptiness of the mental consciousness of the Buddha, that is called the Svabhavakaya. And then with regard to the different manifestations of a Buddha now, the Rupakaya, well, there's the Rupakaya which only manifests, that is only visible for Arya Bodhisattvas, so that is the Sambhogakaya. And then there's the Nimanakaya, or the emanation body, which are all the different manifestations or emanations of a Buddha that are visible to mundane beings, non-Arya mundane beings. So the aspects of like human aspects or celestial beings, so manifesting in the form of humans or celestial beings.
다 실람 제숨 차상진이 독신 마장나 롤레 춘이 다 마숑야기 니주지 다시 이거래 다 간지 무지 시바디 지바 탐지 세용디 아니 시바디를 최탐지 직접도 켄 아 직접도 켄 용디 전에 다 시바디 군캡차 라
시바디 군캡
군도 캡 시바 군도 캡줘도 디다냠도 다 아니 파게 시바다 워지비 달룸 속지요래 어디 캡 구군캡차 다 파게 다 투다 구디 군캡 차차비 제라 아니 파게 먼저 추가와요바 이내다 야 다와다 니마다 카텐딩이나 순이리리리 샤르고로 어다 순이 샤르 차차비다 롱고다 줄고 군캡이랑 신 딜레 아니 카도다 입나마 나초바이 다 순이 가리가리 순이 샤르 온데잖아 미다 샤르고래 호랑기 기자 말이디 파게 셔서 미다위 왕기 미다 다 추나는 어저 베디 하고면다 추나는 지고 샤르게로 추간데지네 다와 순이 지고 샤르게로 멜론은 야가다 멜론 카시 켄자고 드네도 동법에 껴니 샤르게 켄자니 딜레디 동배 기자 말로 파게 멜론 기자로 진짜 셔서 미다위 왕기 아니 카도다 이 미다 샤르 온데잖아 아니 파게 수기고라다 주비하버도 주비고라 간지지 요레스는 타지도 니 송시에요 말참 엔저였다
So here actually it's difficult without an understanding of the basis, the path, and the resultant state. So without actually giving this explanation in connection to those 3 points, it may be difficult to really understand what we're talking about here. But in particular, when we talk about a mind being purified from all the obscurations, so when the awareness, when the mind of a Buddha has now been freed from all the obscurations, that omniscient consciousness that is able to realize reality, all phenomena of reality simultaneously, that is able to realize all dharma simultaneously, that kind of mind now, due to the removal of the obscurations, is all pervasive. And just as the awareness itself, the omniscient mind of the Buddha, is all pervasive, likewise are the subtle energy winds that go along with the omniscient mind of the Buddha. Likewise are they all pervasive. And the subtle energy winds of the Buddha's consciousness, they manifest in different forms, and they're pervasive, like all pervasive, in the sense that they can manifest anywhere. So, therefore, the consciousness of the Buddha and the subtle energy winds, which manifest as different kayas, as different form bodies, all of those are all pervasive. And the analogy that's usually given is that of body of water and then the sun and the moon. So the sun and the moon, wherever you have a body of water, the reflection of the sun and the moon will be there. So it just depends on the body of water which reflects the sun and the moon. But as the moment that there is such a body of water, you will have such a reflection. So likewise here, there's no place where you cannot have the Rupakaya or an emanation body of the Buddha or a form body of the Buddha. But here, of course, the body of water doesn't really work as well. Works so well as an analogy because just by reason of the fact that you have water, it will appear, but the reflections will all look the same. So they will all be the same if you just put still water. So Geshe-la is saying a better example would be different types of mirrors. So when you have different types of mirrors that distort the picture, some mirrors kind of make it longer, some make it shorter, and so forth. So here, the different types of form bodies or rupakayas of a Buddha are similar to different reflections of the sun and the moon, with the mirror being different, therefore different images appear. So likewise, the rupakaya can appear anywhere, but with different shape, with different color, and so forth. So you have different types of rupakayas manifesting in various different ways.
Shimedo Kobjoma, Shimedo Nimdo Kobjoma, Labding Richiorwa. Or Ducita, Tivatan, the Sanji Namchin Shingi Meba, Nami Tony, the Sanji is in a Kujugarto still. Sometimes was it the Sanji is in a Koyagarto. Namchin, Tony, the Sanji Laro, or Nibu. The Sanji is in a Koyagarto still. And yet Tony Sanji is in.
So in particular with regard to those people who say one shouldn't meditate on the lack of inherent existence, they may have this kind of doubt, saying, well, how can we say that the lack of inherent existence of the mental consciousness of the Buddha is a kaya or is Buddha? So usually we say that the lack of inherent existence of the mental consciousness of the Buddha is a sangha, is a Buddha, is a kaya. So what does that actually mean? Other questions?
一般我们都知道，那个如果修世间道是没有办法真正断烦恼的。可是我好像有听说一个说法是说，如果一旦你证得一旦现证空性之后，那么即使你修世间道，就可以至少可以断掉有顶以下的烦恼。那我不知道这个说法是不是格西拉的看法是不是对的？如果是对的，那它的原因是什么？
即当一点白人讲白啦顶呢，圆梦放出去嘛哩，伊那样可能口退啦，当英文书读到惨呢，一点白人讲白人呐，安尼实际面切嘅圆梦放出去咧，其实伫见 三叔看这里gen기对嘞嘛对嘞看这兄弟的gen기嘞걔네点吧이나 기사点吧이나 육체看这里
So her question is that her understanding is that worldly path, independent on worldly path, like worldly concentrations, it is impossible to eliminate the afflictions. However, her understanding is that after one realized emptiness directly, having realized emptiness directly, those worldly absorptions, those worldly kind of concentrations can be used to eliminate, for example, the afflictions that are associated with the highest level of the formless realm, peak of cyclic existence, and so forth. So if that is really true, if her understanding is correct, can Geshe-la kind of talk about this? What does that mean?
아니 돈이 무슨도 또 차네 아니 지대비 담 고함제 아니 뉴고 방바이나 뒤에 리시 문주로 방바레마도 땐도 방비게 좀 말해.
So when we say after we realized emptiness directly, if then we depend on worldly absorptions, those manifesting in our continuing worldly kind of concentrations, the afflictions are only temporarily eliminated. One does not irrevocably or permanently eliminate those afflictions.
뒤지뒤 전에 다 리버시 송진이 대니 전나 다 딘디디 지대비 방바디 냠시버 저지 차고다.
So therefore, when basing, taking reasoning as the basis for that, therefore, so these kind of worldly eliminations, those mundane eliminations, temporary eliminations, we can fall down from those. Those can degenerate. So in other words, the afflictions can reappear if we just temporarily eliminated those afflictions.
다 이내 빼져나는 게 더 세부 되는 뒤에만에 알사 소소지에 내고서 돈을 더 뒤치면 더 좋은데 근데디 냠바 메시지지 디민가를 때 되면서 돈을 더 뒤치면 더 좋은데 밖에 가지 소소지에 내고서 아니 시지무시 가서 레다 시지무시 더 지역에 미치 유모방 아니 디네 돈을 더 주나 치모레로 하다디 치모로 차리무송데 치모데 냠바 메시 비지나 지유에 텐스다 이 세부시 ting입니다. 근데 유나디 경쟁이 시도입니다. 차리무송이 치모요로 가제다 수주기에 내가서 지dim이 남다데 지dim이 가서 다 시제민지 유몽문주 방 데네 통론 타용도 딘디디 네 지dim이 남기 유몽디 통론기 방교 말와 공가기 수주기에 남디 방교로 디 당원지 리바다나 녀메 유용을 지도 디 녀바 메시지 유에베서로 지팅의 세부터 팅입니다. 네. 여러
지된다 내가 남는 게 된다치
어디 여러 이내 때디 경쟁의 신임이 야무지 세부지
So in the scriptures, it actually talks about someone who actually attains the state of the underpath of seeing. They attain not just they don't attain the stream enterer state, but they attain the state of once returner or non-returner or never returner. Right? So one of those states they already attained. Why? Because before they attain the path of seeing, they have with a worldly kind of meditative concentration. They have eliminated already the mundane kind of afflictions, and then later on, once they reach the path of seeing, then they eliminate the super mundane kind of afflictions. So actually, from that point of view, from the explanation, this kind of explanation here in this case, so this kind of practitioner is called the one who's preceded by liberation from attachment. That's the literal Chadumusu. That's the literal translation. The one who's preceded by freeing himself from attachment. So that is the kind of practitioner here who has already eliminated the mundane afflictions with a mundane concentration. But actually, what that would mean would be that this person could fall down from this elimination. In other words, that the afflictions would come again. And then like Geshe-la was saying that yes, there's also this quote that says it can be eliminated, the afflictions can be eliminated by a mundane or by a super mundane kind of concentration. And Geshe-la says, well, if it says that, I don't really know how to explain that in this case.
你们新学的大大提上来。
说这个提问题的人刚好问了老师不会。
就为你们是提了单位呢， 뭐 신경相当是 그런 거是人学的
老师帮他自己在访问
just exactly met what
一清一色都是他不懂的东西，这样，就他连一个答案都是
exactly. Sometimes when you take teaching on Chinese, he talks about something that's exactly that which you don't understand.
다 로스를 견지 요소를 그래서 로지 어지 열상 남지 아니 뒤지면 뭐지 군대 잡 비티 짧고 있어 걔는 건디는 게 있어요 건디나디 렌디 춘이 곁두고 있어 말아 마트에 차니 아니 걔는 이 어지요 다른 가르쳐서 슬라이드로 그래서 카드 캐시어 말했어 이 신조도 있지 못하게 말했어
there's a story of like listening joking with the Chinese translator that this is something that she didn't understand about the 25 anyway, so just like telling a story about a Lutheran teacher who went to get teachings from so he asked questions, he asked Guruji questions, and they asked his teacher questions, and the teacher gave answers in such a way that he didn't understand naturally, he was unable to understand. The answers were so difficult. And so then when he came out, his friends were saying, well, you would really understand well what's going on. And he was saying, my question and his answers and my questions didn't meet at all. They didn't meet together, so there was no common ground. Other questions?
I have a question with my practice. When I meditate, I sometimes try to get all of my sensations and all of my I go through the different elements of the body and the mind, and then I let them go or they dissolve kind of in a space, same as the body and the mind, and then it's then there's nothing except the space, and then dependent arising makes very much sense because everything is interdependent, but I then don't really know how to continue. Like I stay there and I try to stay as long as possible, but I don't know if I should stay there or if I should try to do something else.
Anda mo condition di gom nyamne dan tene mora rangi gom nyamne dan dewa yo che anda ko condition di karsna ko gom nyamne che du tsambala ani thongboji ko thmanyesha gom taji khonagi luinagi jungmashi la so wadan da zo da kham thula so wadila mikpache ani garo chene da jungmashi sananda da kham thu tenzo ani namgala ma tim namgala tim ani namga dela da chi chiame bataw chila dela che chi nyambasha 아니 네가 소다지 이념바샤 있잖아. 텐션대와 중화라야 디 세고 쉬우 차르레스. 가이스나 쭉 하나 가이나 아니 양 출신의 또 거라던데 소피 세고 차르레스. 이나 양지 근데 남가라 때주 념바샤야.
념바샤비 갑라 세고 차르레스.
라오 갑라 호콘. 남자가 갑델라라 아니 텐션대와 중 최탐지 아니 텐데이만 세고 차르레스. 데이나 디제델라 양지 칼로다 봄 디제라 가르 공고야 디 세고 문도. 다주 탐지실라 단다 감투라서 와서 남가라 팀사를 제대라 안들라 냠바샤 따진 제주 냠바샤 따가 제대라 냠냠 셴 가르쳐 고르서 디젤라 바람이 빠지 고르서 디 세우도 디콜로지 발로나
얘라디 팀사위 제다 덴지 세고 차그레스에 컨디 차르게 되지
Gisela is wondering, after everything, I touched it. What? I don't understand.
비치는 게 제시야. 코 고야지 비랑 줄.
아니, sorry. I was confused. So the question is now, Geshe-la is asking you, he's asking you when everything absorbs into space, everything has been absorbed into space, the way you just described it, then does that mean that within that, does it mean then dependent arising appears? How does it dependent arising appear to you? Why does it appear to you after everything has been absorbed into space?
Because if there's nothing like because it's there's nothing which is something, like it's not I'm not here anymore and there's nothing anymore outside, so it's like only movement, but in a vast space, which is even not really space, because there's nothing more far away or close to me, so it's like everything is one kind of, yeah.
But how do you get to dependent arising from that?
Like this, yeah. Because from this point, there is like everything which is together. It's nothing anymore separate from something else. So from there is not my point and there is not another point anymore, but it's together. It's like yeah. How can I explain? Yes and no, because there is no body, mind, and space anymore. It's only space.
세부시다 총무스가 단다 소야디 가르송스나 칼로다 탄참 탕마지 가르 넘갈라 주 뒤디 참갈라 다 나다 셴라이디 큐는민도 다칼로다 넘가마도미야다 지야메버도 차지겠죠 아니 디모돈 하여 말아이니 양자 컨디슈드야 텐델리 컨디스리기스라 아니 또 라마시아도 다칼로다 나야 하메바인자 아니 디기라게 콜라 컨디슈드다 셈다 아니 딱 칼로다 뮤다 셈마서 정말 찍나시 자기도 했으면 찍도 자기도 쓰라 아니 무슨 지체를 다 텐델라야 돼 이 금수도 지나고 텐델 디세보다 차이스
다디지 디자네 지당 하게 네 태가를 코란다 디체스 라야 가보래 코란이 디 공당디 간데스 쿵 가와도니 에는 거미에메 디르다니요 코란코란 전화 주기로 단 남진이나 하게 나기 님네다 텐디 지ങ്ങി나 아니 중앙시도서 팀을 미치니 타르 안에 동상디 철비 제라 아니 돈이 쟁고와 동상 코란도 돈이 라고 말해 텐디 하게 다다 신나 디케바케 메세디디 그 일을 미치버점 가서 시에대 일을 미치버들 지부지경을다 그게 지부지경을다 뒤다 갈라버다 가지 돈이 고된디 요마르티나 다 돈이 고를 신매바세디 가서는다 먼저 시에대디 그게 고원이 비토네 디값을 동상들 냠버샤사 비체다 하는 신매버도 공고
So Geshe-la's response is that he cannot really say anything about the kind of technique that you have described here. He doesn't know what source text, what kind of source text this is based on. But anyhow, there is a similar kind of meditation that is found in the tantric scriptures, where everything dissolves into emptiness. So the idea that the four elements and so forth, everything dissolves into emptiness. But here, first dissolves into emptiness doesn't mean, first of all, that right away emptiness appears. Rather, it's kind of dissolves into nothingness, that one doesn't take the phenomena to mind in that moment, that everything, as we said before, this kind of lack of mental activity, there's this kind of vacuity in that moment, and then one focuses on emptiness. So this would be something that could be done in such a situation, that first one actually just absorbs all the factors, all the elements are being absorbed into this vacuity, and then one focuses on emptiness, one takes the lack of inherent existence. So this would be something that could be meditated upon.
空性指的是无自性的这样子一个理解，那有理解到空性其实是无自性这样的理解之后呢，让我们明白说，当我们透过这四大种融入，然后处在空档状态中，安住在这个状态中，接着再去观修空性。
那多年给这么不去，你东上得这么人家不下呢，东上得这么人家不下，得这么就空不以内，他是看了定义就空档这么去插入了吧，可能变成几个插入。
So even without meditating on emptiness, just then meditating on this vacuity, on this mere empty, just that in itself is beneficial from the point of view of generating concentration, from the point of view of cultivating concentration.
아니 딘나신 돈이 고아야 보여 되는지 어제 되는지 는 돈이 그런 거 봤다가라네 나와 탐지 가루래.
Likewise, a person who has a good understanding of emptiness, and just taking that to mind, all phenomena disappear, all phenomena kind of cease to be there.
가루고 레데 이내다 나단 전이지 나라면다 전이 내지 되는지 는 팅능지에 이미지 제거해야지. 그 롱타루 파게 저에게 디치도 아니 팅능지에 제거해야지 숨겨.
So even though therefore this is the case here, one has just that sense of vacuity or just being empty. But when one does these practices, when one does the meditation according to highest tattva, then it's important to go through the stages of dissolving, the dissolving kind of stages. Why? Because then the energy winds and the awareness, they become subtler. So the energy winds have been made subtler by way of going through the stages of dissolving.
那个这个清洗风洗的状态变得越来越细，所以呢，如果今天你是加上无上于前面的方式去修的话，你就一定要照着那样子一个融入次第去观修才行。
那每个就要的，他第不是老乡的这个一个，可是公园那偏西了，他第都是呢，但俺但真的可能没谁会去了，第嘛因那都是听的的这些嘞，哎，前年是也不去讲，是不是长忙了白个。 펜심단 수박에 수수상단지 야고지 검 검사위 지르다 니 유유마 이수 농제의 지고 심진은 제긴 심진이 치도 인상버체 아니 되네 아니 파당내다 심진도 주용의 기용내다 아니 참마 용수자라 참마 파키 되는 수고 고든미다는 거 뒤서 참마의 파키 수수수를 펜도 봐 되네 배전한테 시바데 계속문도 되다 시바의 키는 되기도 시바데 파키 东山的，东山的这是你不想，俺第一节了，你要不就那，你让心里不得是空，那第一呢，要没设计，他他妈就吃个。
So Vishal has also seen a scripture somewhere where this is seen as something beneficial, this kind of absorption, this kind of dissolving things. So the way to do this practice of dissolving the elements, dissolving everything, the way it is done is by first generating a wish to benefit something, love and compassion, and then to generate, also to cultivate the determination, I will give everything away. So whatever sentient beings need, they can have my head, my things, my everything, and I'm going to give this away. And then you visualize that they actually take everything from you. They take your body, they take first all your possessions, then they take your head, they take your arms, they take your legs, they take everything for their benefit, take it away. It doesn't mention the consciousness in the scriptures. It doesn't say that they also take away your awareness, but you might as well just give that away too. Krishna would just also give away the awareness so that you just lack that vacuity, that kind of empty situation, if you like. So in that empty state, and then after that, you could meditate on the lack of inherent existence. If everything has gone well previously with regard to that visualization, then you could focus on the lack of inherent existence.
这也是一个修行的教授。
that is something the Shiva and also to the Modi Simchin, the James, this is the vision and the Siva came. Then Tabarish sometimes sometimes the Modi teach the Oma Kalachilla take oh, you Modi, this
giving away your consciousness, that's fine, but if you give away your afflictions, that just doesn't seem right. So sometimes Genma Vishnu likes to do that meditation, so he's always like kind of caught with the afflictions, what is he going to do with them? And he has the solution now. In the same way as we transform impure food into pure food by saying Om 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 Om. So first you take the afflictions, you say Om 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 Om, you say that, and then you change your impure kind of states of mind into something pure, and after that you can give it away.
Titang Savi Chelata, Marangi Subodan Kiwata, Tamata, Simjing Chidu Chawai, Simjing Chiranzukari, Nangin and Naroji, Kabuchene Chiroji, Lungtene Tenroji, and Shishetane Tauroji, Nitatane Tauroji, Nimbatene Teroji, Chena Chiranzi, Pagi, Tichene, the Shuti, that Namshakunduni, Pagi Shuti, my Yambaji Kibu is Rochani to color.
So after you've given away your body, your virtues, you've given away everything, so then you generate the thought, whatever you do with it, never mind, do with it whatever you want. Whether you like it, or you get angry, whether you burn it, whether you give me gifts, whatever you do, it doesn't matter, you can do whatever you want. Or you give it away as a gift, give it away as a gift, whatever you do with it, never mind, it's up to you now. So through this kind of force, Sorry, I forgot the rest of that. And so but anyway, Geshe-la is saying that through this influence, through the force of that kind of meditation, even when you get up from that meditation, you go around, you do other things, you engage in other activities, whatever happens to you, you won't be affected in the same way as you would be without doing it.
去做的时候呢，就比较不会有一些比较不好的这种状况发生。刚才我在跟老师讲完之前，我们就跟就跟我说谢谢，因为老师把他一切都给我们。
这个是的。
有其他的问题吗？
Switch it on. Switch it on.
단대비 남순남 성령선에 가 남순남 성령선은 기간이 양가하게 내지는 이 유월에 있어. 오늘 네 계속 남순남 성령선만 있지. 나 정말 영수는 네 산이 그만 또 말이지. 나는 아니 나 정말 남순남 성 정거지. 남순남 성 정거 영수는 됐어. 야월에 이래서 남순남 성 정거지 산지 그랬습니다. 남순남 성 단 누르 정도의 산지가 되다니 많이 없으면 산지원이 산지니 개화하게 나지.
So his question here is with regard to, initially Geshe-la gave the explanation with regard to the three principal aspects of the path and tantric practice. So when one has generated the three principal aspects in one's continuum and then practices tantra, one will be able to quickly attain the state of the Buddha. Whereas if one does not have the three principles in one continuum, one is unable to attain Buddhahood. On the other hand, if one has only the three principal aspects, one only follows the practice of these three principal aspects without practicing tantra, one will still become a Buddha. It will just take longer, and it's better than not practicing, not having the three principles, but practicing tantra. So therefore his question is, what is the difference from the point of view, the state that you reach, the kind of enlightened state that you reach from the point of view of practicing the tantric path to become enlightened, or just following the practice of the three principal aspects? What is the difference?
도 길람 장배 턴의 산지부 유나 안티가 나가 누비 전에 산지부 유바 이니 유바 이나 산지리 기벌 요마레 이네다 파게 다다 숑나는 송용 뒤선에 대기 다 지용의 송로가 파게 진이 대바 장과 제디 산지에 요래 마 장과 제는 산지에 요마레스 이 지용의 송로가 다 시사부 간을 주디잖아요 아니 도장부 종인데 서주부부터 줘 서주부네 아니 나기람 누비 장으로스 이 순구요 양마다 누비 장으로 시리다 단단한 주님네 제반은 이끼리나 되네마 계속 그거 말 그러니까 믹스기 때지 다는 비제 얘기 제대로도 디레
So, with respect to the kind of enlightenment that you would attain if you rely mainly on Tantra or you rely mainly on the practice of the three principal aspects, the type of enlightenment is the same. There's no difference between the two. However, this was just a general kind of explanation saying that if you just follow the three principal aspects and then without engaging in Tantric practice, you can become enlightened. That was just a general explanation. Because to be more precisely spoken, when you just practice these three principal aspects, it takes you all the way through the different levels of the path until you reach the 10th root of a bodhisattva, 10th round of a bodhisattva. But from then onwards, you are unable to become enlightened without practicing Tantra. So once you reach the 10th round, merely independence, or the 10th bhumi of a bodhisattva, merely independence on the Tantric, independence on the practice of the three principal aspects, you need to do a little bit of Tantric practice. You do not need to do the generation stage practice. So many of the practices you would have to do if you went entirely through the Tantric path, you do not have to do. You have to do only a little bit of Tantric practice, and then that takes you to full enlightenment.
다 초롬, 절롬, 통로 민세의 서주, 디제의 산지 이차고라. 디제도 도장부 조등의 서주부터 조도고도. 되네 내가 됐으면 비제지. 다 되네 도주니 주도 마셔버체 돌아가게 님네 돈이 송셔비 님네 되게다. 춘이 더 맞아버체 응아 인스는 응아 장부 조등의 가버도 lep체 도에는 비자고 그래서는 손원부들이 두고 말. 야 기호코라는 야 주투고 그래요.
So, when we talk about the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, so you go through the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, then once you reach the path of seeing, then you start with the different grounds or the different bhumis, so the first bhumi, the second bhumi, all the way up to the 10th bhumi. So when you just practice the sutric practice, you only engage in sutric practices, you can go through all these different levels, the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, and then on the path of seeing, once you go through the first bhumi, the second bhumi, all the way up to the 10th bhumi. And then once you reach the 10th bhumi, you need to add a little bit of tantric practice, and then you can become fully enlightened. If now you were to only focus on tantric practice by totally ignoring any sutric kind of teachings or sutric kind of practice, so first you just engage in tantric practice. If you then ask, when do you need to add the sutric teachings? And when you add them, where have you reached? Where have you gotten to? The answer is you haven't gotten anywhere. You haven't gotten even to the path of accumulation. Why? Because by merely, without depending on the sutric teachings, you cannot progress. So you cannot even, Geshe-la says, enter the window. You cannot even enter the window. Other questions?
可以再问一下昨天那个问题，有关于那个独立的意，所以老师在讲那个独立的意，跟我们在讲能独立实质有的，比如说独立意的那个我的指法，跟我们在讲能独立实质有的我的指法是一样的吗？
可能人家去上去人家的塔底，伊过来像我这属于属于的，人家的塔底，人家的打人家的塔底，真捌地堂打人家出个坐月，真捌地面几把人的。
Her question relates to what Geshe-la also talked about again before yesterday, the idea of being self-sufficiently different. So being self-sufficiently different and a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. What is the difference?
다 란제비 타데도 짐바다 렌지유비 기지시 온디 아니 다 란제비 타데도 짐바다 다 란제도 비제유도 짐바 찍어 차로를
So when we perceive of the self and the aggregates as being self-sufficiently different, that innate perception, the mind innately perceives this, is the same as perceiving self-sufficient, substantially existent self.
다 지단 파게 란제도 비제유도 짐바스네다 아니 가서 원규제 규칙도 짐바시리 와디 원규로 년체 공고디 원규사 딘디 쳔바를 뒤전에 딜러 파게 페이지 디인스 군진 전시회 파게 인체니 공부의 친이 미팅비 아니 원규제 규칙도 진행시 공부의 친이 팀비 친이 팀비는 비즈니스 세워요는 정말 미치 책이 참참 비지 당기다 내가 저 싫어하는 땡입니다 가지고 딘디진이랑 이제 되게 제일 재미지 인시에서로 딘디 용거를
So here with regard to the perception or the awareness that grasps the self-sufficient, substantially existent self, well that's the same as that kind of perception is a perception that perceives the I, the self, as the kind of that which is in control, and the aggregate as that which is controlled. So the controller is the self, that which is controlled is the aggregate. And then according to according to his writings, he speaks of two types of perception of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. In the sense like of those being having totally different characteristics, the self and the aggregates, and not having totally separate characteristics. Because actually, Geshe-la asked whether that's really what it says in the text, and the response was, no, this is how it was told. This is not really literally explained in that way in the text, but this is how His Holiness explains it. In other words, there's a sense of the control of the self and that which is controlled, the aggregates, but there's two ways in which one has such a sense. One in which they exist totally as unrelated, the self and the aggregates, and in one case in which they don't seem to exist totally unrelated, but they still have that relationship of a controller and that which is controlled.
다 지단 바이range 투비 제유의 짐을 현재 요리 요마스 데이터를 룸 부지체 베테스 뇨트 차부지 요리 다 데이터를 바게 마마게 데비가르이나 다타나 베제마타게 두스데 테스 코체 가버데 이제 당연히 되잖아요. 테스 수치질라나 마게 데비가르 아니 이페메지 생기다 range 제유의 짐바 현재 유비 초네 직송요 다른 것도 찾아서 공을 찍지 직송요 디디가를 다 치수마래 디디가를 gembalden 잡아기 아니 range 제유의 짐바 아니 두터 메시에데 버들 알텐지 메베서로 그렇지 요 콩타는 지요래 진짜 디니가 추직니 아니 이 테스트치 바게 심주지체 엘하버도 아니 바게 단 감제 담저 샤하트 gembalden 잡아 요새 초디와 리디전에 아니 기베마 예세나신 진린자 아투다 랭킹이 되었던데와 뭐 딘디진이 심주지도 타만들라 가리바고 못으시나 아니 풍불이 못하되기 다 매비다 디 가제 가스다지 군다지로와 풍불이 못하되기 다음에 봐 어디다 란제투비 다음에 봐 디니디 차라메 봐샤나 풍불이 못하되기 진거디 진거 군다다 hin지 제바 모도 란제투비 아니 제유디 진마다 차라메 봐지 샤바이나 아니 롱차마 디싱들도 스타다 킬린 투게지 지상 신의 딩을 긴 시도기 딘디시도 다지랑 진심이 다네다 라헤티디 제 메비 다네 차라 요마레시 치비비지 이네디 캡텐 룸다 쿵다 디마송인자 고쳐입니다 다왕 뭐 거르지 제버제제 상들을 어디 갔는데서 란제 투비 다네다 안 다지랑 진이 다네스는 다 부모모다 다네 차라 요마레시 다음에다 아니 따지러 오신 다음에
So So from the point of view of perceiving an innate sense of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, there are many different quotations that are given, a lot of different structural quotations that seem to be saying the same thing. So anyway, this is the following what I'm going to say now. For those of you who have not studied the scriptures, this may be a little bit confusing. For those of you who studied the scriptures, this may be beneficial. So with regard to this, the perception of the grasp and the awareness that grasps at a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, well, according to the former abbot Khyentse Chögyam Gyaltsen, according to he's a great master, the late master of Japan Muslim, so in one of his writings, he says that there is an innate grasping, an innate awareness which grasps at a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. However, according to Geshe Bandinjara, the contemporary master Geshe Bandinjara from Japanese Muslim, he says there is no, there's only an intellectually acquired awareness which perceives a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. So putting those two together, it seems contradictory, and Geshe has always been very interested in what actually this means, to bring those two together in a way in which they're not contradictory. And so whenever there was there was debate between the different kansen, between the different hospitals at Losering, in particular when Geshe Bandinjara was present, Geshe-la would then answer in such a way that would contradict Geshe Bandinjara's view, but rather be in accordance with Khyentse Chögyam Gyaltsen's view, in order for then Geshe Bandinjara to respond and ask questions so that he would understand Geshe Bandinjara's view better. And as it turned out, what Geshe Bandinjara was saying was, when he said there's only an intellectually acquired awareness which grasps at a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, he was talking about an awareness which perceives the self and the aggregate as being of a different nature. So that perception, a perception of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self that perceives the self and the aggregates as being of a different nature, in that case there can only be an intellectually acquired awareness. There cannot be an innate awareness. So, therefore, there is really no difference between the two assertions. There is no really such a difference. And slowly, only just then, was Geshe-la able to understand the writing of Geshe Tuk, who talked about that there is actually no difference in terms of subtlety and coarseness with respect to the awareness which perceives a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, and the awareness which perceives a permanent, partless independence. So slowly, after understanding the explanation given by those two masters, understanding what actually was the meaning behind it, he understood the writing of Geshe Tuk.
自主的我无这两点根本没有粗细的差别。他突然想起这一段。
这点的历史人物呢，用句啊，这个跟他是相关系。我的那个地那个的，但地的这些地方的跟他是相关系的，这个天气的跟他一起的没么切，多大不认识，的这个我那嘛认识，然后成绩的大大来做的，我的这个跟他来讲呢，成绩的大大做没到，根据别些玩意去给大家听的对吧？跟他是相关的的。 di tata draw mare tadi draw ta bare kansa tanjin sile kansa tanjin yiwa mare lamni draw ayina ane wagi chui tanjin sie de chui tanjin yiwa mare lamni tata draw she ro
inda ponta da janja puta tsone ne six ko ba ta mo de ta na de no pin ta da ne puta lo ma ji wa me to se de
ta ga zu chura ge le de chi go ta
It's like a debate here. It's like you debating here.
东天全部的，但是江浙普谈的，他西上西部上嘛，基本当然得打了的。那些你不能呢，住在罗马就了，没多少的这个，然后就被没去西边，然后就特别在是主办人怎么的，还是当然长买这个我的是啥办一个的。第一前年呢，住在罗马就了，没多少的，但是每个大家让我进去怎么的，然后不离是多的，就是跟了都不离生的。西部上这个么子嘛，真的打了几%这个破。
So Anyway, so here the explanation that Geshe-la first gave was that according to Lama Tsongkhapa's eloquent speech, it is saying that there is only with regard to an awareness which grasps at a self-sufficient, substantially existing self. It does not exist in the continuum other than someone who is a follower of philosophy. So in other words, there is no innate perception of such. There can only be an intellectually acquired one. So then Geshe-la was saying then that is not the actual, according to the Svatantrika school, that would therefore not be an awareness which is seen as a self-grasping mind, as an actual self-grasping mind. It would actually just be a coarse self-grasping mind. It would not be a subtle self-grasping mind, but just a coarse self-grasping mind in the sense of perceiving the self and the aggregate as an entity. And then the other Geshe-la, he said, yes, this is supported by Khedrubje's text. So in English, the text is translated as the emptiness of emptiness. I don't know if it's difficult to translate it right now, the text by Khedrubje, but if you just think of the English book, The Emptiness of the Emptiness, this is the translation of Khedrubje's book, as well as Tangya Rinpoche Dorje's tenet school. So there's a text by Tangya Rinpoche Dorje on the tenet systems, and they actually say the same thing the other Geshe-la is saying, in the sense that this seems to be referring when Lama Tsongkhapa says that this type of awareness, as accepted by the Svatantrika and so forth, that is only an intellectually acquired one. The explanation given by Khedrubje and Tangya Rinpoche is similar. The explanation is similar here, as in like saying the kind of awareness which is the kind of self-grasping that is accepted by the Svatantrika school, for example, does not refer to the innate one, but it rather refers to a mind that grasps into a self-sufficient, substantially existent self by way of seeing the self and the aggregates as different entities. So in the sense of perceiving a kind of heartless, independent kind of self. So that would be the kind of awareness here, and therefore this kind of awareness cannot be found in the continuum of beings whose minds are not affected by philosophy. So this is the same kind of explanation here. So tomorrow we have a day off, and we meet again tomorrow. We have a day off, and Sunday we meet again.
多年到日，我是梦见我能解决世界万样万没白呀，